The notification hit my phone at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. You have a new DNA relative, Sophie Bennett. Relationship, close family, half-sibling, 25% DNA shared. I stared at the screen, waiting for my brain to make sense of the words. Sophie Bennett. My best friend since 7th grade. My maid of honor. The person who knew me better than anyone on earth. The woman I'd called my sister from another mister for 15 years. Except, apparently, we weren't from different misters. We shared one. Sophie and I met in 7th grade when her family moved to Denver from Portland. She was the new kid who wore vintage band t-shirts and Doc Martens. I was the girl who talked too much and organized everyone's lives. We were assigned as lab partners in Mr. Peterson's science class. By the end of the first week, we were inseparable. Sleepovers every weekend, matching Halloween costumes, study sessions that turned into 3-hour conversations about nothing and everything. We went to different colleges but talked every day. When I got engaged, she was the first person I told. When she got her dream job in Boston, I cried for an hour, then helped her pack. Our friendship was the constant in both our lives, the North Star, the thing we both knew we could count on when everything else was chaos. We even joked about it. Soulmates don't have to be romantic, Sophie would say. Sometimes they're just your person. She was my person, and now 23 and me was telling me she was also my half-sister. I called her immediately. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Mia, what's wrong? It's late. Her voice was groggy. Boston was 3 hours ahead, and it was already past midnight there. Did you get your DNA results back? Pause. Yeah, this morning. Why? Did you look at your relative matches? Another pause. Longer this time. Not yet. I've been in meetings all day. Mia, what's going on? I couldn't say it. Couldn't make the words come out, because saying it would make it real, and I wasn't ready for it to be real. Look at them, I whispered. Look at your matches and call me back. I hung up before she could respond. For 23 minutes, I sat on my bathroom floor, staring at my phone. My husband, Jake, knocked twice, asking if I was okay. I couldn't answer. When Sophie called back, she didn't say hello, just, "What the fuck?" I know. Mia, this has to be a mistake. These tests aren't always accurate. There are false positives. They're 25% DNA shared, I cut in. That's not a margin of error. That's half-siblings. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. One of our dads isn't our dad, Sophie finally said, her voice small and broken. Yeah. Which one? And that was the question, wasn't it? My dad, James Harper, electrician, married to my mom for 34 years, coached my soccer team, taught me to change a tire, called me his sunshine until the day I got married. Sophie's dad, Robert Bennett, investment banker, married to Sophie's mom for 36 years, serious, quiet, taught Sophie piano, paid for her Columbia education, 2 men who, as far as we knew, had never met, 2 men from completely different worlds, 2 men who supposedly loved their wives and families. One of them had a secret. We need to talk to them, I said. Together, we can't do this separately. Sophie agreed. She flew to Denver that weekend. Friday night, we sat in my living room with a bottle of wine neither of us touched, trying to figure out how to blow up our families. What if it ruins everything? Sophie asked. What if we ask and our parents' marriages fall apart? What if we destroy our families for information we can't unknow? We already know, I said quietly. We can't unknow it now. She nodded, wiped her eyes. Okay, Saturday, both families. We tell them together. We arranged lunch at my parents' house, told everyone it was just a casual get-together. Our families hadn't all been in the same place in years. My parents, Sophie's parents, Jake, Sophie's boyfriend Tyler. Everyone confused but happy. Everyone except Sophie and me, who could barely breathe. We made it through appetizers, through small talk about work and weather. My mom fussed over the lasagna. Robert Bennett complimented the wine selection. Everyone was smiling, and then Sophie set her phone on the table. "We need to tell you something," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Mia and I took DNA tests through 23andMe for fun, just to see our ancestry breakdown. My mom smiled. "Oh, how exciting. What did you find?" I looked at Sophie. She looked at me. We'd rehearsed this, but no amount of rehearsal made it easier. "We found each other," I said. "The test says we're half siblings. We share 25% of our DNA." The room went silent. My dad laughed, nervous, confused. "That's impossible. These tests make mistakes all the time. You're not related." "We are," Sophie said quietly. "We checked 3 times, uploaded to different databases, GED Match, Ancestry, Family Tree DNA. Every single one says the same thing. We're half-sisters." I watched my mother's face, watched the color drain from it, watched her hand reach for her wine glass and miss. "Laura?" My dad's voice, concerned, turning to her. "Laura, what?" "It was 33 years ago," my mom whispered. The world tilted. "What?" My dad's voice cracked. My mom was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "James, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "It was one time. We were separated. You'd moved out. We were getting divorced. I thought we were over." "Who?" My dad's face was white. "Who was it?" My mom looked across the table at Robert Bennett. Sophie's mom, Catherine, made a sound I'll never forget. Like something breaking inside her. Robert Bennett didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at my mother like she was a ghost. "You said it meant nothing," Catherine whispered. "When I found the credit card receipts from that Denver business trip, you said it meant nothing." "It didn't," Robert said, his voice hollow. We were both." "I was pregnant," Catherine cut him off. Her voice was ice. "I was 3 months pregnant with Sophie when you were fucking someone in Denver." The words hung in the air like a detonation. "You were pregnant?" Robert turned to her, his face collapsing. "You didn't tell me." "I was going to when you got back, but you came home and you were so distant, and Catherine's voice broke. I knew something had happened, and I was so scared you'd leave if I told you about the baby when you were already pulling away." "Catherine, don't." She stood up, grabbed her purse. "Sophie, we're leaving." But Sophie didn't move. She was staring at her father, at my mother, at me. "So I'm not..." Her voice was barely audible. "Robert's not my biological father?" "No," my mom whispered. "James is." And my dad who had raised me, who had been at every birthday, every graduation, looked at me with tears streaming down his face and said, "You're not mine?" "No," my mom said again. "Robert is her father." The lunch ended in chaos. Catherine left, refusing to look at anyone. Robert stayed, shell-shocked, trying to explain something that had no explanation. My dad locked himself in the bedroom. Jake and Tyler ushered Sophie and me outside. We sat on the porch steps, numb. "Your dad is my dad," Sophie said. "Your dad is my dad," I echoed. "We really are sisters." "Yeah." We sat in silence for a long time. I don't know how to feel, Sophie finally said. I'm angry, but also, I've always wanted a sister. I laughed. It came out harsh and broken. Same. We've been sisters this whole time, she said. We just didn't know it. The universe knew, I said. That's why we found each other, why we've been inseparable for 15 years. It wasn't just friendship, it was family, Sophie finished. The next few months were brutal. My parents separated. Dad moved into an apartment across town. He stopped answering my calls for 2 weeks. When he finally did, he cried, told me he loved me, that I was still his daughter, that biology didn't change that. But his voice was different, broken, and I knew that every time he looked at me now, he saw Robert Bennett, saw his wife's betrayal, saw the daughter who wasn't his. Sophie's parents filed for divorce. Catherine moved back to Portland. Robert reached out to my mom, trying to co-parent or figure things out. I'm still not clear what he wanted. My mom told him she'd made a mistake 33 years ago and didn't need to make another one now. Robert tried to build a relationship with me, invited me to coffee, sent texts about getting to know his daughter. I went once. It was awkward, painful. He was a stranger trying to play father to a 32-year-old woman who already had a dad. I stopped responding after the third invitation. James Harper was my father, the man who raised me, the man who chose me every day for 32 years, even when he didn't know I wasn't biologically his. That's what mattered, but the guilt ate at me. Because Robert was my biological father, and I was rejecting him. And part of me wondered if I was being unfair. Sophie and I leaned on each other through all of it, talked every day, sometimes cried, sometimes laughed at the absurdity of it all. We spent 15 years calling each other sister as a joke, she said one night over FaceTime. Turns out the universe was trying to tell us something. The universe has a fucked up sense of humor. Yeah, but there was also something comforting about it. Knowing that the person I'd felt closest to my entire adult life wasn't just a best friend. She was family, actual biological family. We'd always been connected. We just hadn't known why. James and I started therapy together, family counseling. It was hard, painful, sessions where he cried and told me he felt like he'd lost his daughter. Sessions where I cried and told him he hadn't lost anything, that I was still here, still his. Slowly, so slowly, things got better. He started answering my calls again, started showing up for Sunday dinners, started looking at me without that flash of pain in his eyes. You're mine, he told me one night, 6 months after everything imploded. I don't care what some test says. You're my daughter. You're my sunshine. And nothing changes that. I believed him. For the first time since that 23andMe notification, I actually believed him. Sophie had it harder with Robert. He kept pushing, kept trying to insert himself into her life, kept calling himself her real father. He's not, she told me, angry and exhausted. He's a sperm donor who happened to raise Mia instead of me. James is my real father. He raised me. He loved me. He chose me. Robert just existed. But James struggled with Sophie too. She looked like him. We both realized it once we knew. Same nose, same smile, same laugh. Every time he saw her, he saw the daughter he'd raised versus the daughter he should have raised. It was complicated, messy, painful, but we worked through it. A year after the DNA test, our families gathered again. This time, intentionally, my idea. James, Robert, my mom, Sophie, me, Jake, Tyler. Catherine declined, still too angry, but everyone else came. We didn't pretend everything was fine. It wasn't. My parents were still separated. Sophie's parents were divorced. Robert and James barely spoke. My mom looked 10 years older, but we were there, together, trying. "I want to say something," I announced halfway through dinner. "Sophie and I have been thinking a lot about what family means, about biology versus choice, about the hand we're dealt versus the hand we play." Sophie nodded, took over. "Our parents made mistakes, big ones that hurt everyone at this table. But those mistakes also gave us something incredible. They gave us each other. We've been sisters for 15 years, I continued. We just didn't know it. And yeah, finding out the way we did was traumatic. But the truth is, we were always family. We always will be." James wiped his eyes. My mom was crying. Even Robert looked emotional. "So here's what we propose," Sophie said. "We stop fighting about who's the real parent. We stop pretending biology is the only thing that matters. We accept that family is complicated and messy and sometimes doesn't make sense." "James is my dad," I said firmly, looking at Robert. "He raised me. I love him. That doesn't change. But Robert, you're my biological father, and I'm willing to get to know you as a person, not as a replacement. And James," Sophie added, "you're my biological father, and I'd like to build a relationship with you. But Robert raised me. He's my dad. That doesn't change either." "We're proposing something radical," I said. "We all just try to be a family. A weird, unconventional blended family that no one asked for, but a family." Silence. Then James spoke. "I'd like that." Robert nodded. "Me too." My mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. It's been 2 years now since that 23andMe notification changed everything. James and I are closer than ever. He walked me down the aisle at my wedding. Yes, again. We renewed our vows because I wanted him to have that moment. He's teaching me guitar. We have breakfast every Sunday. Robert and I meet for coffee once a month. It's still awkward sometimes, but we're trying. He's teaching me about investing, telling me stories about his childhood. We're building something, slowly. Sophie and I are still best friends, but now we're also sisters, officially. We tell people we're half-sisters and watch their faces try to do the math. "But you don't look alike," they say. "How does that work?" "Long story," we say, and laugh because it is a long story. A complicated, messy, painful, beautiful story. My mom and James are in couples counseling. They might reconcile, they might not, but they're talking. That's something. Catherine still won't speak to my mom or Robert. I don't blame her. Some betrayals take a lifetime to heal from, maybe longer. But Sophie talks to both her parents, separately. She's set boundaries, made it clear she won't tolerate bad-mouthing or guilt trips, and they're respecting it, mostly. Here's what I learned from all of this. Family isn't just biology. It's not just the people who share your DNA. It's the people who show up. The people who choose you every day, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. James Harper isn't my biological father, but he's my dad, the man who taught me to drive, who walked me down the aisle, who calls me his sunshine, who loved me before he even met me and kept loving me after he found out I wasn't his. That's family. Robert Bennett is my biological father, a stranger I'm getting to know, a man whose genes I carry, but whose life I didn't share. He's family too, in a different way, in a way we're still defining. And Sophie is my best friend and my half-sister, my person and my blood. We were soulmates before we knew we were siblings. And knowing the truth hasn't changed that. If anything, it's made it deeper, more certain. We were always meant to find each other. The universe just took the long way around. Sometimes Sophie and I sit on my porch with wine and talk about what our lives would have been like if our parents hadn't made the choices they made. If my mom and Robert hadn't had that affair. If James had raised Sophie and Robert had raised me. Would we still have found each other? Would we still have been best friends? Or would we have been strangers, passing each other on the street, never knowing we shared the same blood? I like to think we would have found each other anyway, that some connections transcend circumstance, that soulmates, whether romantic or platonic, always find their way home, but I'll never know for sure. What I do know is this: I wouldn't trade my dad for anything. Not for biology, not for genetic matches, not for anything. James Harper is my father, in every way that matters, and Sophie Bennett is my sister, in every way that matters. The DNA test didn't create our family, it just confirmed what we'd always known. We belong to each other.